Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I sat in the back row at my brother Andrew's lavish promotion party, watching our parents hand him keys to an $85 million Hawaii resort and an Audi. "We're proud of you." Unlike someone who only brings shame, my father announced to applause while glancing toward me. Andrew smirked, whispering as he passed, "The dumb one stays dumb, little brother. Only fit for factory work." As I contemplated leaving, a well-dressed stranger sat beside me, slipping an envelope into my hand. "It's time to show them who you really are." The Carter family name meant something in the hospitality world. At least, that's what my father reminded us constantly growing up. Our family owned a chain of luxury hotels and resorts across the western United States, built from nothing by my grandfather, and expanded aggressively under my father's leadership. Success and intelligence were the only currencies that mattered in our household, and early on, the roles were established. Andrew was the smart one. I was just Shane, the worker. I can't pinpoint exactly when the labels stuck. Maybe it was when Andrew skipped 2 grades in elementary school while I struggled with dyslexia that went undiagnosed until high school. Or perhaps it was during the countless dinner conversations where my practical questions about hotel operations were dismissed as simple thinking while Andrew's theoretical business strategies earned approving nods. "Shane has good hands," my mother would say with a tight smile when introducing us to business associates. "Andrew has the mind for business, but Shane can fix anything." The compliment always felt backhanded, especially when followed by Andrew's academic achievements or business insights. The summer I turned 14, I started working maintenance at our smallest property, a 70-room hotel in Seaside, Oregon. I loved the work, learning from the maintenance manager, Frank Wilson, a former Navy engineer who treated me with a respect I never felt at home. By 16, I could troubleshoot most mechanical systems in the hotel, and by 18, I knew every operational aspect from housekeeping to front desk. "College would be wasted on you," my father said when I mentioned business school after graduation. "You've found your place already. Not everyone is meant to lead." So Andrew went to Wharton on the family dime while I stayed at the Oregon property, eventually becoming assistant manager through years of dedicated work. Every family gathering became a showcase for Andrew's accomplishments. His internships at prestigious firms, his study abroad in Tokyo, his thesis on luxury market expansion that earned honors. Meanwhile, my promotion to assistant manager wasn't even acknowledged at Thanksgiving dinner. What they didn't know was that 3 years ago, I'd started taking night classes at Portland Community College, later transferring credits to Oregon State's online business program. Every night after 12-hour shifts, I'd study until 2 in the morning, learning accounting, management, marketing, and hospitality administration. "You're smarter than they give you credit for," Frank told me once, catching me studying during a lunch break. "Don't let their perception become your reality." I didn't tell my family about the classes. After years of hearing I was just the worker, I wanted irrefutable proof before revealing my efforts. Even as Andrew completed his MBA and returned to take an executive position at our corporate headquarters, I continued working and studying in silence. The Oregon hotel became my laboratory. I implemented small changes, improving efficiency and customer satisfaction scores. Our occupancy rates climbed 15% over 2 years, and our operating costs decreased by 7%. These improvements were noticed at corporate, but the credit was given to new marketing initiatives rather than my management. Last week, Andrew was promoted to Chief Operations Officer at age 28, an unprecedented achievement that my parents celebrated with an extravagant party at their Lake Washington mansion. I was invited as an afterthought, my mother calling the day before to remind me to wear something presentable. I almost didn't go. But something inside me, perhaps a need for closure or confirmation that I would never be seen for my true capabilities, compelled me to attend. I never expected that decision would change everything. The party was in full swing when I arrived, the mansion filled with Seattle's business elite and hospitality industry leaders. I recognized several hotel owners and investors mingling with my parents' social circle. Andrew stood in the center of the main room, holding court in his perfectly tailored suit. I found a seat in the back row for the inevitable speeches and presentation, content to remain unnoticed. But as I sat there watching the celebration unfold, I never imagined that a stranger with an envelope would suddenly offer me the chance to rewrite my family story. The ballroom of my parents' Lake Washington mansion glittered with champagne flutes and designer gowns. Crystal chandeliers reflected off marble floors, illuminating oil paintings of Carter hotels throughout the decades. 200 guests mingled through rooms that could have been mistaken for our luxury hotel lobbies, which was intentional. My father always said our home should showcase what we sell. I sat in my department store suit, feeling every bit the outsider despite having the same last name as the hosts. A server I recognized from our Seattle property gave me a subtle nod of recognition. A fellow worker among the executives. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father's voice boomed through the professional sound system. "Please take your seats for the special presentation." The crowd moved toward arranged seating, instinctively leaving the front rows for important guests and relegating me to the back without a word. I watched my brother shake hands as he made his way to the front, his perfect smile never faltering. "Today marks a historic moment for Carter Hospitality Group," my father began, his 6'2" frame commanding the room from a small stage. "For 3 generations, we've built this company on excellence and vision. Now, we welcome the newest executive to continue that legacy." My mother joined him on stage, elegant in a designer dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. "Andrew has proven himself not just as our son, but as a visionary businessman. Wharton MBA, innovative marketing strategies, and the Pacific expansion proposal that increased our portfolio value by 30% in just 18 months. They highlighted every achievement, each milestone of Andrew's meteoric rise through the company. Not once did they mention that some of the successful innovations at our properties had originated as my suggestions, ideas I'd shared during rare family dinners, only to have them dismissed until Andrew later presented them as his own. "And now," my father continued, "we're proud to announce Andrew's promotion to Chief Operations Officer, overseeing all 23 properties in our collection." Applause erupted as Andrew took the stage, his practiced humility on display. "I'm honored and ready for this responsibility," he said. "Carter Hospitality has always represented excellence, and I intend to uphold that standard." He thanked executives, mentors, and our parents effusively. Then, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he added, "And I should mention my brother Shane, who knows his place in the company and has always been content to stay there." A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the audience. Our parents smiled indulgently at what they perceived as good-natured teasing. Now, my father announced, "To celebrate this achievement, we have a special surprise." A screen descended showing aerial footage of our most prestigious property, the Royal Palmetto Resort in Maui, a beachfront complex valued at $85 million. "Andrew, we're entrusting you with direct oversight of our flagship resort," my father declared, handing him an ornate key. "Your vision has earned you this opportunity." My mother stepped forward with a small box, and because every executive needs proper transportation, she opened it to reveal a key fob with the Audi logo. "We're so proud of you," they said in unison. My father couldn't resist, adding, "It's wonderful to have a son who brings pride to the Carter name, unlike some who only bring shame." His gaze briefly shifted to me before returning to Andrew. The room applauded, either not noticing the slight or choosing to ignore it. I sat perfectly still, my expression neutral despite the familiar sting. When the presentation concluded, guests swarmed Andrew with congratulations. I made my way to the bar, ordering a scotch I didn't particularly want just to have something to do with my hands. "Little brother," Andrew's voice came from behind me. "Didn't expect to see you here. Shouldn't you be fixing a toilet somewhere?" I turned to face him, noting the 3 executives flanking him like courtiers. "Congratulations on the promotion, Andrew." "Thanks," he smirked. "Not everyone can handle real responsibility. The dumb one stays dumb, right? Some people are only fit for factory work." His entourage chuckled obligingly. One of them, a vice president I'd met at a company function years ago, looked slightly uncomfortable but said nothing. "We need people like you, though," Andrew continued, louder than necessary. "Someone has to do the grunt work while the adults make decisions." I took a sip of scotch, letting the burn distract from the humiliation. The Oregon property had record satisfaction scores last quarter. "Right, that little motel." He waved dismissively. "Dad keeps it out of sentiment. Speaking of which, I'm reviewing all properties next month. Might be time to consider some personnel changes. The threat wasn't subtle. I watched them walk away, laughing about something as they rejoined the party. I finished my drink and was contemplating a quiet exit when someone took the seat beside me. "You're Shane Carter," the woman said. Not a question. She was perhaps 40, professionally dressed in a navy suit with subtle jewelry and an air of competence. She wasn't part of our usual social circle, and I didn't recognize her from company events. "I am," I confirmed. "And you are?" "Julia Barnes, independent financial auditor." She placed an envelope on the bar between us. "I think you should see this." "Why would I need to see audit documents?" Her expression remained neutral. "Because you're the only Carter who might actually care about saving this company." Before I could respond, she slid the envelope closer. "The 16th floor of the Columbia Center, 10 tomorrow morning. Come alone, and bring this envelope." She stood to leave, then leaned down as if sharing a confidence. Her voice was just loud enough for me to hear over the party noise. "It's time to show them who you really are." I watched her navigate through the crowd and disappear, then looked down at the plain envelope on the bar. My name was written in precise handwriting across the front. With a glance to ensure no one was watching, I slipped it into my jacket pocket and left the celebration without saying goodbye. At home, I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were financial documents, spreadsheets, and transaction records. At first glance, they looked like standard reports, but as I examined them more closely, discrepancies emerged. Large sums moving between accounts, falsified occupancy reports, expense allocations that made no sense. And at the bottom of almost every document, my brother's signature. The Columbia Center dominated Seattle's skyline, its 76 floors of black glass reflecting clouds and occasional glimpses of sunlight. I passed through security at 9:45 the next morning, the envelope secure in my briefcase. Julia Barnes's office suite occupied half of the 16th floor, with Barnes Financial Forensics etched on glass doors. The reception area was minimalist and professional, staffed by a single assistant who nodded when I gave my name. "Miss Barnes is expecting you," he said, leading me to a corner office with views of Elliott Bay. Julia stood as I entered, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. Unlike at the party, today she wore reading glasses and had her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Carter," she said once we were seated. "Did you review the documents?" I placed the envelope on her desk. "I did. I'm assuming these show financial irregularities, but I'm not sure why you're involving me instead of going to the board or my father." She smiled slightly. "Direct. Good. Let me explain my position first. I was hired 4 months ago by Thomas Westfield, one of your minority board members, to conduct a discreet audit of Carter Hospitality Group's finances. He had concerns about inconsistencies in quarterly reports. And you found something." "I found a systematic pattern of financial manipulation," she corrected, opening a laptop and turning it toward me. "Revenue inflation at multiple properties, embezzlement disguised as capital improvements, falsified occupancy rates to justify rate increases to investors." She clicked through spreadsheets and charts, each showing different aspects of a complex financial scheme. Over the past 3 years, approximately $12 million has been diverted from company accounts through various methods. My stomach tightened. And my brother is responsible? The evidence points strongly in that direction. His signature appears on most of the authorization forms, and the timing coincides with his increasing control over financial operations. I stared at the screen, memories surfacing. 3 years ago, I noticed discrepancies in our Oregon property accounts, maintenance budget cuts that didn't appear in the official reports, revenue numbers that didn't match our actual bookings. I brought it up during a quarterly review, but was told I didn't understand corporate accounting practices. Julia nodded. "Your property wasn't the only one affected, but it was among the first. The scheme expanded as your brother gained more authority. Why bring this to me? Why not go directly to the board or my parents?" She closed the laptop. 2 reasons. First, Mr. Westfield wanted absolute certainty before making accusations against the son of the majority shareholders. Second, and more importantly, your family has significant emotional investment in your brother. They're likely to dismiss these findings or find ways to rationalize them. I couldn't argue with that assessment. My parents had spent years rationalizing Andrew's behavior while dismissing mine. What about the authorities? That's a nuclear option that would damage the entire company and every employee within it. Mr. Westfield would prefer an internal resolution if possible. She studied me carefully. Which brings us to why I approached you. I still don't understand what you expect me to do. I've done my homework on you, Mr. Carter. Despite being relegated to a small property, you've achieved impressive results. Occupancy rates up 15%, costs down 7%, customer satisfaction scores that lead the entire group. You completed your business degree with honors while working full-time, yet you've never leveraged that achievement for advancement. My surprise must have shown on my face. Yes, I know about your degree. My investigation was thorough. What intrigues me is why you've kept it secret from your family. I considered deflecting but opted for honesty. I wanted irrefutable proof of my capabilities before revealing it. After a lifetime of being told I'm just the worker, words on a diploma wouldn't be enough. Exactly. You understand that perception often matters more than reality in family dynamics. She leaned forward. Here's what you may not know. If your brother continues on this path, Carter Hospitality Group will be insolvent within 12 to 18 months. The statement hit like a physical blow. That's impossible. We have 23 properties, hundreds of millions in assets. Assets that are increasingly leveraged for new acquisitions based on inflated performance metrics. Your brother has been using a version of a Ponzi scheme, using funds from newer properties to cover shortfalls at established ones, all while skimming millions for himself. The house of cards is already wobbling. She pushed a folder across the desk. These are projections based on current trajectories. Without intervention, by this time next year, your family company will be facing bankruptcy, scandal, and possibly criminal charges. I opened the folder, scanning financial projections that confirmed her dire prediction. Everything the Carter name stood for, 3 generations of work, hundreds of employees who depended on us for their livelihoods, all heading toward destruction. Why would he do this? He stands to inherit a successful company. Why risk destroying it? Julia's expression softened slightly. Some people value control and admiration more than long-term stability. From what I've observed, your brother enjoys the accolades of expansion more than the discipline of proper management. He's been living extremely well on his diverted funds, with multiple properties and luxury expenditures hidden under shell companies. I set the folder down, my mind racing. I need time to process this. Time is precisely what we don't have, Julia countered. With his new position as COO, your brother will have even greater access to company finances and fewer oversight mechanisms. What exactly do you want from me? Help us save your family's company. Work with me to gather conclusive evidence that even your parents can't ignore. Use your operational knowledge and access to document the full extent of the fraud. The proposition was overwhelming. Exposing Andrew would shatter my parents' world and potentially destroy our family. But doing nothing would guarantee the company's collapse. I can't make this decision right now, I said finally. Julia nodded. I understand, but I need your answer within 48 hours. After that, Mr. Westfield will be forced to consider other options. She handed me a business card, my direct line. Call me when you decide. I stood to leave, my mind swirling with implications. One more thing, Mr. Carter, Julia said as I reached the door. Yesterday at the party, I saw how your family treats you. I also reviewed your work at the Oregon property. The disconnect between your capabilities and their perception is stark. Whatever you decide about this situation, don't let their limitations define your potential. I left without responding, her words echoing as I descended in the elevator. The Seattle rain matched my mood as I walked aimlessly, trying to make sense of everything I'd learned. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. Executive Committee reviewing all properties next week. Oregon under performance review. Prepare accordingly. The threat couldn't have been clearer. Despite our record customer satisfaction scores and improved financials, Andrew was positioning to remove me. Now I understood why. My little hotel had likely been questioning his accounting directives, creating a liability he needed to eliminate. After hours of contemplation, I made my decision and called the number on Julia's card. Her assistant put me through immediately. I'll help you, I said without preamble, not just to expose Andrew but to save the company and everyone who depends on it. I was hoping you'd say that, Julia replied. Let's meet tomorrow to develop a plan. What I didn't tell her was that I'd made 2 stops after leaving her office. First, to the Oregon Properties Accounting Archives, where I'd kept my own records of discrepancies dating back 3 years. And second, to visit Frank Wilson, my old mentor who had retired last year. Trust your instincts, Frank had advised when I explained the situation without naming names. You've always seen things clearly, even when others couldn't see you. As I hung up with Julia, I knew the coming weeks would either save my family's legacy or destroy what remained of our relationships. Either way, I would finally show them who I really was. The next morning brought a text I'd been dreading. My parents requesting my presence for dinner that evening. Their formal dining invitations usually preceded some announcement or criticism, rarely anything positive where I was concerned. I spent the day gathering financial records from the Oregon property, focusing on discrepancies I'd noted over the past 3 years. Each inconsistency now made perfect sense through the lens of Julia's revelations: maintenance budgets that disappeared without explanation, revenue reports adjusted after submission, vendor contracts suddenly transferred to companies I'd never heard of. At 7 sharp, I arrived at my parents' mansion, the same location as Andrew's celebration but now eerily quiet. Our family dinners had a ritualistic quality, with seating arrangements that never varied: my father at the head, mother to his right, Andrew to his left, and me beside my mother, a positioning that always made it difficult to fully engage in conversation. "Shane," my mother greeted me with her customary cheek kiss, "I wish you'd let me take you shopping for proper attire." I glanced down at my suit, perfectly serviceable but lacking the designer labels my family preferred. "This works fine for the Oregon property, Mom." "That's exactly what we need to discuss," my father said, entering from his study. "Andrew will join us shortly." We moved to the dining room where staff served the first course. Small talk dominated until Andrew arrived 15 minutes late, offering no apology for his tardiness. "Now that we're all here," my father began once Andrew was seated, "let's discuss the restructuring." My mother nodded encouragingly. "It's quite exciting, Shane. With Andrew's promotion, we're reimagining the entire company structure." "The board has approved my strategic plan," Andrew announced with practiced modesty. "We're consolidating operations to improve efficiency." I took a sip of water, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "As part of this restructuring," my father continued, "we'll be selling the Oregon property." The statement shouldn't have surprised me, but it still felt like a punch to the stomach. The Seaside Hotel has been part of our portfolio since grandfather's time. It's profitable and has the highest customer satisfaction scores in the group. "It's an outdated property that doesn't fit our luxury brand positioning," Andrew countered. "The land value alone makes it worth selling." "What happens to the staff?" I asked. "Some have been with us for decades." My father waved dismissively. "The new owners may retain some. Others will receive standard severance." "And what about me?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication that excluded me as usual. "We've found an opportunity for you," my mother said with forced brightness. "Our Phoenix property needs an assistant facilities manager, a demotion and relocation, packaged as an opportunity. Phoenix was where problematic employees were sent, a property far from headquarters and family oversight. This is what's best for the company," my father added firmly. "Andrew's analysis shows we need to focus on our premium properties." I looked at my brother, seeing the satisfaction behind his professional mask. This wasn't about business strategy, it was about removing me from the picture before I could discover more about his financial manipulations. "When would this take effect?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. 2 weeks, Andrew answered. "The sale is already in preliminary stages, and the Phoenix position needs immediate filling. 2 weeks, conveniently timed to disrupt any investigation I might assist with." I felt a surge of anger, but carefully controlled my expression. "I see. And I suppose I should be grateful for the opportunity?" My father frowned. "That attitude is precisely why you haven't advanced further, Shane. Andrew has always approached challenges with enthusiasm, while you question everything." "Someone should be questioning things," I replied, unable to entirely suppress my frustration. "Has anyone verified the financial projections behind this restructuring?" Andrew's eyes narrowed slightly. "The executive committee and board have approved my analysis. It's all quite thoroughly documented." "I bet it is," I thought, remembering the falsified reports Julia had shown me. I'd like to review those projections before making any decisions about Phoenix, I said. My father's expression hardened. This isn't a negotiation, Shane. The decision has been made at the highest levels. Your role is to execute, not question. The familiar dynamic settled over the table, 3 against 1, with my opinion dismissed before it was fully expressed. For a moment, I considered revealing everything I'd learned about Andrew's schemes, but Julia's warning about evidence and timing held me back. May I be excused? I asked after a long silence. I need to process this news. My mother nodded sympathetically, though her sympathy never translated to actual support. Of course, dear. We understand this is a change for you. I stood, placing my napkin beside my barely touched dinner. Thank you for the meal. Andrew smiled up at me. Don't worry, little brother. Phoenix has simple systems. More your speed. No complicated decisions to trouble you there. The condescension nearly broke my restraint, but I managed a tight nod before leaving. Outside, I sat in my car for several minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel as I contemplated my next move. My phone chimed with a text from Julia. Progress update tomorrow? Found new information. I responded with confirmation, then drove not home but to Frank Wilson's modest house in Bellevue. Despite the late hour, my old mentor welcomed me with coffee and a listening ear. Frank's living room was cluttered with memories from 40 years in hotel maintenance, including photos with 3 generations of Carter family members. He was the only person who had consistently believed in my abilities, teaching me not just about mechanical systems, but about people management and business operations. They're selling the Oregon property, I told him after explaining the dinner conversation, and shipping me to Phoenix as an assistant facilities manager. Frank's weathered face creased with concern. That's Andrew's doing, not business necessity. That property has been profitable even during downturns. It's more than that, I admitted, then shared what Julia had revealed about Andrew's financial manipulations, the embezzlement, and the company's precarious future. Frank listened without interruption, his expression growing grimmer. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. I suspected something wasn't right, he finally said. Last year before retirement, I noticed maintenance allocations that disappeared from the budget after approval. When I questioned it, I was suddenly offered early retirement with an enhanced package. Hush money, I realized. He's been removing anyone who might notice discrepancies. Likely so. Frank poured more coffee. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, I admitted. Exposing Andrew means destroying my parents' faith in him and potentially damaging the company publicly. And doing nothing means watching the company collapse while your brother loots what's left, Frank countered. Plus, hundreds of employees lose their livelihoods. Put that way, the choice clarified. You're right. I need to act. Then do it properly, Frank advised. Gather irrefutable evidence, prepare a complete case, and present it all at once. Your family has spent years dismissing your input, so you'll only get one shot at this. Andrew's already moving to sideline me. 2 weeks until I'm shipped to Phoenix. Frank smiled for the first time that evening. Then you have 2 weeks to save Carter Hospitality Group, don't you? His confidence strengthened my resolve. Yes, I do. As I left Frank's house near midnight, my phone buzzed with an email from Andrew, copying our parents and the board, transition plan attached. Shane to hand over Oregon operations by next Friday. Phoenix position begins following Monday. He was accelerating the timeline, likely sensing danger. 1 week, not 2. The pressure increased, but so did my determination. That night, I reviewed my degree completion papers and transcripts, documentation I'd kept private for 3 years. My business degree with specialization in hospitality management graduated summa cum laude while working full-time. Alongside this academic achievement, I assembled performance metrics from the Oregon property, showing our success despite continual budget reductions. The next morning, I met Julia at a small cafe far from company properties. She slid a flash drive across the table. New evidence, she said quietly. Your brother has been deliberately suppressing your career opportunities for years. I found emails where he intercepted advancement recommendations from regional managers and replaced them with negative assessments. The revelation shouldn't have hurt after years of slights, but it did. He actively sabotaged me? Systematically, Julia confirmed. And it wasn't just professional jealousy. You were getting too close to his financial manipulations. Each time you identified a discrepancy, he moved to limit your access or authority. I absorbed this information, pieces clicking into place. They're selling the Oregon property and sending me to Phoenix next week. The timeline's been accelerated. Julia frowned. That's faster than expected. We need to move quickly. I'm ready, I said with newfound clarity. It's time to show them who I really am. The next 7 days became a carefully orchestrated mission. By day, I maintained the appearance of reluctantly preparing for the Oregon property sale and my Phoenix transfer. By night, I worked with Julia to build an airtight case against Andrew's financial schemes. My first step was connecting with key employees across multiple properties who had noticed similar discrepancies. Julia had identified potential allies through her audit, people who had questioned processes but been dismissed or relocated. I approached them cautiously, never revealing the full scope of our investigation, but asking pointed questions about specific transactions. The vendor change came directly from corporate. The purchasing manager at our San Diego property explained during a careful phone conversation. When I mentioned the new company charged 15% more for lower quality supplies, I was told it was part of a strategic partnership. 3 weeks later, I was transferred to a smaller property. This pattern repeated across the organization. Questions about financial decisions led to reassignments or departures. Andrew had systematically removed or marginalized anyone who might spot his manipulations. Meanwhile, I completed my official duties at the Oregon property, documenting everything and secretly copying key records. The staff noticed my extra hours, but attributed them to preparation for the handover. Only Megan, our longtime front desk manager, suspected more. "You're up to something," she observed, bringing coffee to my office at 11 one night. "And it's not just transition paperwork." I trusted Megan, who had been with the property since before I arrived. "I can't discuss it yet, but if things work out, the sale might not happen." Her eyes widened. "Really?" "Because we all know this property is profitable. The sale makes no business sense." "Exactly. Just keep this between us for now." She nodded. "The team is behind you, Shane. Whatever you're planning, we know you're fighting for this place." Her support meant more than she realized. For years, the Oregon staff had treated me with a respect I never received from my family, recognizing my capabilities rather than focusing on my limitations. On Wednesday, 3 days before my scheduled departure, I graduated from my business program, attending the ceremony alone. I hadn't told anyone in my family, wanting the achievement to stand on its own when revealed at the right moment. The diploma now sat in my briefcase alongside the mounting evidence against Andrew. That evening, Julia called with news. "The quarterly board meeting has been moved up to Friday morning. Andrew's presenting his complete restructuring plan, including the Oregon sale." "That's too soon," I protested. "We need more time to compile everything." "Actually, this might work in our favor," Julia replied. "The entire board will be present, including your parents. It's the perfect opportunity to present our findings. They won't just let me interrupt a board meeting. Thomas Westfield can add an agenda item," she explained. "As a significant minority shareholder, he has that right. He's agreed to request a financial review session immediately following Andrew's presentation." The plan crystallized in my mind. So Andrew presents his falsified projections, taking credit for his strategic vision. "And then you present the reality," Julia finished, "with irrefutable evidence of both the fraud and your own capabilities." I spent Thursday finalizing our presentation, creating clear visualizations of the financial discrepancies that even my parents couldn't dismiss. Julia provided additional documentation from her audit, while Frank contributed historical context about the company's operations. Friday morning arrived with a mixture of dread and determination. I dressed in my best suit, packed my evidence and presentation materials, and drove to corporate headquarters in downtown Seattle. The gleaming 30-story building housed Carter Hospitality Group's executive offices on the top 5 floors, with the main boardroom overlooking Puget Sound. Security almost didn't let me up to the executive floor, my infrequent visits making me practically unrecognizable to staff. Only the Carter name on my ID granted access. "The board meeting is already in progress," Mr. Carter, the executive assistant, informed me with a disapproving glance at my late arrival. "I'm aware. I'll wait until called." Julia and Thomas Westfield were already seated in the waiting area outside the boardroom. Thomas was in his 60s, one of my grandfather's original investors and a longtime board member who rarely interfered with operations. "Shane," he greeted me warmly. "Julia has kept me informed of your work this week. Impressive efficiency. Thank you for your support, Mr. Westfield. I hope today's presentation will justify your confidence." "The company's future is at stake," he replied gravely. "Your grandfather was a man of integrity. He'd be proud to see you fighting for his legacy." We waited nearly 2 hours as Andrew presented his restructuring plan to the board. Occasionally, applause filtered through the closed doors, suggesting his persuasive abilities remained strong. Finally, the doors opened, and board members began filing out for a scheduled break. Andrew emerged looking triumphant, stopping short when he saw me. "Shane, what are you doing here? Phoenix orientation doesn't start until Monday." "I'm here for the financial review session," I replied calmly. His eyes flicked to Julia and Thomas, recognition and alarm crossing his face before he masked it with practiced confidence. "There's no financial review on the agenda." "There is now," Thomas stated, rising to his feet. As requested by a significant shareholder, Andrew's expression hardened. "This is highly irregular." "Nevertheless, it's happening," Thomas replied, brushing past him to re-enter the boardroom. Andrew leaned closer to me. "Whatever you think you're doing, stop now. You're embarrassing yourself and the family." For once, his intimidation tactics had no effect. I simply picked up my materials and followed Thomas into the room. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 14 people seated around a massive table, including my parents, who looked confused by my presence. At the head of the table, my father frowned. "Shane, what is the meaning of this interruption? We're in the middle of a crucial strategic session." Thomas took control before I could respond. "James, as you know, I've requested a financial review as the next agenda item. Shane and Ms. Barnes will be presenting some concerning findings regarding company operations." My mother looked between us, bewildered. "Shane is presenting financial information? Surely Andrew should handle this." The familiar dismissal stung, but I kept my expression neutral as I connected my laptop to the presentation system. "Actually, Mrs. Carter," Julia interjected professionally, "Shane has been instrumental in identifying and documenting the issues we're about to present." Andrew took his seat beside our father, leaning to whisper something that made my father's frown deepen. Board members exchanged curious glances as I prepared my materials. "You have 15 minutes, my father declared, checking his watch. "Then we need to return to Andrew's restructuring proposal." I nodded, took a deep breath, and began the presentation that would either save our family company or destroy my relationship with my family forever. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, for the past 3 years, Carter Hospitality Group has been the victim of systematic financial fraud and mismanagement. The boardroom temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as I displayed the first slide, a simple comparison of reported versus actual financial results across all properties for the past 3 years. "What you're looking at," I explained, "is the difference between the financial reports submitted to this board and the actual operational results at our properties." Board members leaned forward, examining the dramatic discrepancies between the two datasets. My father's face had turned to stone, while my mother glanced anxiously between Andrew and me. "These are serious accusations," one board member stated. "What evidence supports these alternative figures?" "Comprehensive evidence," I replied, advancing to the next slides. Original property reports before corporate adjustments, banking records showing unauthorized transfers, and vendor contracts with inflated costs funneling to shell companies. Julia stepped forward. "As an independent auditor engaged by Mr. Westfield, I verified all financial documentation presented today. My complete findings are included in the packets being distributed." An assistant circulated detailed reports to each board member. Andrew remained unusually silent, his expression calculating as if measuring his options. "Over the past 3 years," I continued, "approximately $12 million has been diverted from company accounts through various methods, including falsified occupancy rates, inflated vendor contracts, and direct embezzlement disguised as capital improvements." I methodically walked through each scheme, showing specific examples from different properties. The evidence was overwhelming, and the board's initial skepticism gradually shifted to concern. Most critically, I concluded the first section These financial manipulations have placed Carter Hospitality Group in a precarious position. Rather than the robust growth presented in official reports, our company is actually trending toward insolvency within 12 to 18 months. Murmurs spread around the table as board members exchanged alarmed glances. My father, who had remained stone-faced throughout, finally spoke. "These are very creative interpretations of standard accounting practices," he said dismissively. "Andrew has explained the acceleration strategy to this board multiple times. Short-term adjustments for long-term growth." Andrew nodded emphatically. "Exactly. Shane doesn't understand corporate finance. He's misinterpreting normal business operations." It was the response I'd expected. I clicked to the next slide. A bank statement from a Cayman Islands account. This offshore account has received 26 transfers over 30 months, totaling $4.7 million, all from funds diverted from Carter Properties. I paused, letting the information sink in. The beneficial owner of this account is Andrew Carter. The room erupted in confusion. Andrew shot to his feet. "This is absurd. I've never seen that account. Shane is obviously manufacturing evidence because he's jealous of my success and bitter about his own failures." My father pounded the table for order. "Shane, this is a serious accusation against your brother. If you can't substantiate it immediately, you'll face severe consequences. The transactions are documented in detail on pages 12 through 17 of your packets," Julia interjected smoothly, "including the authentication certificates from the financial institutions involved." As board members flipped to the referenced pages, I continued. "Additionally, Andrew has systematically removed or reassigned employees who questioned financial discrepancies. I displayed emails showing Andrew's direct interventions, including the suppression of my own advancement opportunities and his orchestration of the Oregon property sale specifically to remove me from a position where I might discover more evidence. Throughout this revelation, I maintained a professional tone, presenting facts without emotional commentary. The evidence spoke for itself, each new slide tightening the case against Andrew. My mother had grown increasingly pale. "There must be some explanation," she whispered, looking to Andrew. Andrew's composure was cracking. "This is a coordinated attack on my reputation. Shane has always been jealous of my success. He's fabricated this entire narrative because he can't accept his limitations." "Actually," I replied calmly, "I've been documenting these discrepancies for 3 years, initially not understanding their full significance. It was only when Ms. Barnes approached me with her independent findings that the complete picture emerged." My father looked between us, his certainty visibly wavering as board members continued examining the evidence, even if there were irregularities. "That doesn't mean Andrew was responsible. He delegates financial details to his team. The documentation shows his direct involvement," Thomas Westfield stated firmly. "His signature appears on key authorizations, and the transfers to his personal accounts are irrefutable." Andrew's face flushed with anger. "You've all trusted me to lead this company to unprecedented growth. Are you going to let my underachieving brother destroy everything with these fabrications?" "They're not fabrications, Andrew," I said quietly, "and I think you know that." Something in my tone must have reached him, because his next approach changed completely. His expression softened, and he addressed the board with practiced vulnerability. "I admit I may have been aggressive with growth strategies and perhaps cut some corners on reporting, but everything I've done has been for the good of the company. We needed to show strong numbers to attract new investors and financing for expansion." This partial admission strategy seemed to sway several board members, who nodded in understanding. My father seized on it immediately. "See? Ambitious methods for ambitious goals. Nothing malicious. I had anticipated this pivot. If that were true, why divert nearly $5 million to personal accounts? Why falsify occupancy reports instead of addressing actual performance issues? Why systematically remove employees who noticed discrepancies?" Before Andrew could respond, I displayed my final evidence, a comprehensive recovery plan for Carter Hospitality Group, including detailed operational improvements, financial restructuring, and a path to legitimate growth. This isn't about tearing down. It's about saving our family company before it's too late. The board members studied the recovery plan with interest. One of them looked up, clearly impressed. "This is remarkably detailed work, Shane. When did you develop this expertise?" The moment had come to reveal what I'd kept private for years. I placed my business degree and transcripts on the table. I completed my business degree with specialization in hospitality management 3 years ago, graduating summa cum laude while working full-time at our Oregon property. I've been implementing these management principles there, resulting in our 15% occupancy increase and 7% cost reduction despite continual budget cuts. The revelation visibly shocked my parents. My mother's hand went to her mouth, while my father's expression cycled through disbelief, confusion, and then something approaching reassessment. Andrew, sensing the room's changing sentiment, made one last desperate attempt. "This is all an elaborate deception. Shane has been planning this coup for years, manipulating records at his little property to make me look bad. He's always resented me for my natural abilities." His voice had risen to a shout, composure completely abandoned. Several board members looked uncomfortable with the display. "Actually," came a new voice from the doorway, "Shane has always been the most honest person in this company." Frank Wilson stood there, holding a thick folder. Security had apparently allowed him up on Thomas's prior authorization. "Frank?" My father recognized his longtime employee with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "Providing historical context, sir." Frank approached the table. "I've worked for Carter Hospitality for 42 years, through 3 generations of leadership. I've kept my own records of financial and operational decisions throughout that time, including notes from when these financial irregularities began." He placed his folder on the table. "Shane didn't ask me to come. I volunteered because the truth matters, and this company deserves better than what it's been getting." The simple statement from a trusted, long-time employee seemed to have more impact than all the financial evidence. Board members exchanged glances, and one by one, attention turned to Andrew, who had fallen back into his chair, his confident facade crumbling. "I think," said Thomas Westfield after a long silence, "that we need to call an executive session to discuss next steps." My father nodded slowly, the reality finally seeming to sink in. "Yes, Shane, Julia, Frank, please wait outside while the board deliberates." As we rose to leave, Andrew made one last appeal. "Dad, you can't seriously be considering his accusations over my proven track record." My father didn't respond, his expression unreadable as he stared at the evidence spread before him. In the waiting area, Frank patted my shoulder. "Well done. Whatever happens now, you stood up for what's right." "Thank you for coming," I said sincerely. "Your perspective probably made more difference than all our financial evidence." "Sometimes people need to hear the truth from someone they've always trusted," Frank replied. "It creates a bridge for accepting difficult realities." We waited nearly 3 hours as the board deliberated. Occasionally, raised voices filtered through the doors, suggesting heated debate. Finally, at nearly 7 in the evening, we were called back in. The atmosphere in the boardroom had transformed. Andrew sat alone at one end of the table, separated from the others, his expression alternating between defiance and defeat. My parents looked exhausted. My mother's eyes red-rimmed from crying. "The board has reached several decisions," Thomas announced formally. "First, Andrew Carter is removed from all operational roles within Carter Hospitality Group, effective immediately. Financial authorities will be notified regarding the misappropriated funds." Andrew stared at the table, not meeting anyone's eyes. "Second, we are implementing the recovery plan presented by Shane, with some modifications to be determined by a restructuring committee." My father cleared his throat. "Third, the board has asked Shane to serve as interim director of operations while we stabilize the company and conduct a proper executive search." The statement seemed to physically pain him to deliver, yet there was also a hint of something else in his expression. Perhaps the beginning of recognition. "The sale of the Oregon property is canceled," my mother added quietly. "It will serve as a test site for the operational improvements outlined in Shane's plan." Thomas concluded the announcements. "A press statement will be prepared citing strategic reorganization without detailing the financial improprieties to protect the company's reputation during recovery. However, full cooperation with financial authorities is non-negotiable." The meeting adjourned shortly after, board members filing out with solemn expressions. Andrew was escorted to his office to collect personal belongings, under supervision. My parents lingered, clearly wanting to speak with me, but struggling to find words. Finally, my father approached. "You should have told us about your degree." It wasn't an apology or acknowledgement of their decades of dismissal, but it was something, Would it have mattered? I asked honestly. He had no immediate answer, which was perhaps answer enough. We need to talk, my mother said, as a family. But not tonight. There's been enough. Enough for today. I nodded, understanding that reconciliation, if possible at all, would be a long process. As everyone departed, I remained in the boardroom, looking out at the Seattle skyline as evening lights began to illuminate the city. Julia approached, offering a small smile. "Congratulations, Interim Director. Thank you for your help. I couldn't have done this without your initial push." She gathered her materials. "You had the courage to act when it mattered. That's rarer than you might think." She handed me a card. "If you need consulting during the restructuring, I'm available." After she left, I sat alone in the boardroom where I'd never been welcome before, contemplating the weight of responsibility I now carried. The company was damaged but salvageable. Relationships were another matter entirely. My phone buzzed with a message from the Oregon property team. "Heard rumors the sale is off. True?" I smiled slightly and texted back, "True. I'm coming back Monday with good news." The reply came instantly, "Never doubted you. Team celebration planned." For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt truly seen for who I was and what I could contribute. Not just the worker, not just the dumb one, but a leader with vision and integrity. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but at least now, it would be honest. 1 year passed with remarkable speed. 12 months of intensive work, difficult conversations, and gradual rebuilding, both of the company and my family relationships. The initial weeks after the board meeting were the hardest. Andrew faced legal consequences for the financial misconduct, eventually accepting a plea agreement that included restitution and community service rather than imprisonment, largely due to my parents' influence with authorities. He moved to Chicago afterward, seeking a fresh start away from the family name and reputation. My parents struggled to reconcile their image of their sons with reality. For my father, accepting that his golden child had betrayed his trust was particularly difficult. He threw himself into helping with the company's legal challenges, perhaps finding it easier than addressing the emotional fallout. My mother, surprisingly, adapted more quickly. One evening, about 3 weeks after everything changed, she visited my new office at headquarters. "I brought you something," she said, placing a small box on my desk. Inside was a hotel key, ornate and clearly ceremonial rather than functional. I recognized it immediately. "Grandfather's first hotel key," I said, looking up in surprise. "I thought this was lost years ago." She shook her head. "I kept it, waiting for the right time. He always said it should go to whoever would truly carry forward his vision for the company." The gesture represented the beginning of a thaw in our relationship. Small steps, awkward conversations, but progress nonetheless. The Oregon property became our proving ground for new operational approaches, with Megan promoted to general manager while I split time between headquarters and field operations. The team embraced the opportunity, implementing efficiency measures and customer experience improvements that soon reflected in our metrics. Within 6 months, we rolled out successful innovations to other properties, gradually stabilizing the company's financial position. Julia Barnes stayed on as a consultant, her expertise invaluable during the restructuring. Today marked an important milestone. The board had called a special meeting at the Oregon property, the first time the full board had visited this location in over a decade. As I welcomed them to the completely renovated conference room, I felt a sense of pride seeing the transformation. "Impressive changes," Thomas Westfield commented, looking around at the tastefully modernized space that maintained touches of the property's historic character. The occupancy and revenue reports reflect it too. Other board members murmured agreement as they took their seats. My parents arrived last, my father nodding approval at the arrangements. "Let's begin," he said, taking his customary place at the head of the table. First agenda item, permanent executive appointments. The temporary leadership structure had served its purpose during the crisis, but the time had come for permanent decisions. I had prepared myself for various outcomes, including the possibility of an outside CEO being appointed. "The Executive Search Committee has reviewed numerous candidates," Thomas reported. "Their recommendation is before you." Board members reviewed the document, several smiling slightly as they read. I move to approve the committee's recommendation to appoint Shane Carter as permanent Chief Executive Officer of Carter Hospitality Group, said one of the senior board members. Seconded, another added immediately. My father looked at me, his expression complex but no longer dismissive. Any discussion before we vote? The room was silent. Then let's proceed to a vote. It was unanimous. After a year as interim director, I was now officially CEO of the company my grandfather had founded. Congratulations, my father said formally, then added something I'd rarely heard from him. You've earned it. The meeting continued with regular business, but there was a different atmosphere than the tense sessions of the past year. The company had emerged from crisis stronger, with more transparent operations and renewed focus on both customer experience and employee development. After the board adjourned, my parents lingered. My mother approached first, hugging me with genuine warmth. Your grandfather would be so proud, she whispered. My father stood awkwardly nearby until she nudged him forward. He extended his hand, which I shook. I was wrong about you, he said simply. For many years. I'm sorry. The words I'd never expected to hear. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot. We're having dinner at the house tonight, my mother interjected, to celebrate. Will you come? I'd like that, I replied sincerely. After they left, I took a walk through the property, greeting staff members who had stood by me through everything. Frank Wilson had returned from retirement as a special advisor, helping train a new generation of maintenance personnel. CEO Carter, he greeted with a mock salute when I found him teaching a new hire about the HVAC system. Sounds right to me, I laughed. Still getting used to it myself. Don't. You've been a leader long before they gave you the title. He dismissed the trainee with instructions before turning back to me. Your grandfather told me something once that I never shared with you before. He said the true measure of a business isn't its size, but its integrity. I think he'd approve of where you've taken things. Later that afternoon, I sat in my original office overlooking the Oregon coastline, reflecting on the journey of the past year. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Julia Barnes entered, looking professionally sharp as always. I hear congratulations are in order, CEO Carter. Thank you. I'm still processing it. I gestured for her to sit. How's the San Francisco property implementation going? On schedule. Staff there has embraced the new processes completely. She placed a report on my desk, but that's not why I'm here. This is my final consultation report. The company has successfully completed its restructuring. You've been invaluable through this process. She smiled. It's been satisfying to see a company actually recover and improve, rather than just manage decline. As we discussed final details, I realized how much had changed since that first encounter at Andrew's promotion party. The stranger with an envelope had helped me discover not just my brother's deception, but my own capacity for leadership. That evening, dinner at my parents' house was different from any family meal I remembered. The formal dining room had been abandoned in favor of the kitchen nook, with my mother actually cooking instead of staff serving. My father opened wine and asked detailed questions about our newest property acquisition, listening attentively to my responses. I spoke with Andrew yesterday, my mother mentioned as we finished dessert. He's doing well in Chicago, teaching business ethics, ironically enough. I nodded, having maintained limited contact with my brother. Our relationship would never be what it once was, but the bitterness had gradually subsided. He asked about you, she continued. Seemed genuinely interested in the company's recovery. Perhaps someday he can visit, I offered. Not to work, but just to see the changes. My father studied his wine glass. Redemption takes many forms. He's finding his own path. The conversation shifted to future plans, and for the first time, I felt like a true participant in the family dialogue rather than an afterthought. Later, as I prepared to leave, my father walked me to the door. Shane, he said hesitantly, I want you to know something. I was wrong to label you all those years ago, limiting you to what I thought you could be rather than seeing who you actually were. It's in the past, I assured him, perhaps. But recognition matters, even belatedly. You saved our company when I couldn't see the danger in front of me because I was blinded by favoritism and preconceptions. He placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, son. Not just for what you've accomplished, but for how you did it. With integrity. The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear. The next morning, I addressed a company-wide leadership meeting in our newly renovated headquarters. 200 managers from all properties gathered to hear the new CEO's vision. As I looked out at their faces, I saw not just employees but partners in the rebuilding of a legacy. Carter Hospitality was founded on a simple principle, I began. That success comes not from appearance but from substance. Not from claiming excellence but from delivering it, consistently and honestly, in every interaction with every guest. I shared our new 5-year plan, emphasizing transparent operations, employee development, and customer experience innovation. As I concluded, I added a personal note. A year ago, someone handed me an envelope that changed everything. It forced me to choose between comfortable silence and difficult truth. That choice defines us, both as individuals and as a company. Today, I'm asking each of you to commit to choosing truth, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Because that's how we build something that lasts. The applause that followed felt like both an affirmation and a promise. A new beginning, built on hard-earned wisdom and the courage to show the world who we really are. Have you ever been underestimated by family or coworkers? How did you respond to it, and what did you learn from that experience? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to hear more real-life stories of triumph over adversity, and share with someone who might need encouragement today. Thank you for listening. And remember that your worth isn't determined by others' perception of you, but by your own integrity and actions.